Hi. Graveyard shift. Ooh, that's too loud. There we go. I'm Meri Williams. I'm South African originally, and that means sometimes I talk way too fast. So I need your help that if I get too fast, I need the whole room to start doing this. Do it now? Practice with me? Cool, thank you. That made it look like I'm trying to make you worship me. That's not the intent at all. It's more like a this. So I'm not a front-end dev. I'm not a UXer. I'm basically useless at this point. I'm a CTO. I run pretty big engineering organizations. But I started off as a hardware hacker, and I built my first computer from parts when I was about 8 years old, and basically messed around soldering stuff for most of my childhood. And it meant I had this really crazy experience as a teenager of building part of South Africa's first satellite. A really tiny part, really unimportant part. But yeah, that was kind of weird. Who's got kids? Fair few of you. My key advice for parents is don't let your kids do anything cool when they're young. Because my personal experience is like, I soldered something that went into space when I was 14. It's all been fucking downhill from there. Like, I can never be cool again. But I've done a bunch of other stuff in the meantime. So I wrote a book and was lucky enough to be part of the scale-up of the government digital service and helping deliver GovUK. And these days I'm leading a team at Marks & Spencer in the UK and a part of a conference called The Lead Developer, which basically helps folks when they're at that point where they need to care about team and tools as well as tech to develop into technical leaders. But my initial reaction over 10 years ago when I first got asked to lead people was basically this. I was terrified. And I think I was terrified because I hate bad bosses. I think everybody hates bad bosses. We think of them as clueless and empty suits, and you know, they're pretty pointless, right? We've all read far too much Dilbert, and we hate the pointy head boss. Is everybody familiar with the Seagull School of Management? Fly in, shout at everybody, shit on everything, and fly away again? Yeah. I'd experienced a fair bit of that, and I really didn't want to be that kind of boss. So my reaction was pretty much the reaction of this cat. Good news, I found the best cat gif on the internet. We can all stop looking now. But my reaction was basically, fuck that thing in particular. I'm not going to be terrible at this. I refuse to be. And I found this great piece of advice. This came a few years later, but a couple of people had said similar things to me of like, you know, there's only really three types of manager. The shit umbrella tries to protect their people. The shit funnel chooses the person they hate the most and makes it all concentrate onto them. Or the shit fan, which I think is the most common, of just like spread it all around indiscriminately and hope you don't get hit yourself. And one of the problems we have is that all these beliefs we have about leadership and management are bullshit. And in particular in tech, we have a habit of pretending that we have to start with 1920s factory-style management and like figure it out from there. And I know that we don't all necessarily respect management science, but like there is some research, guys. We could pay attention occasionally to it. So if we accept for a moment that there's a lot of bullshit advice out there, but maybe there's some science that can help us, what might work? And the first thing to accept is that as a leader, your job is not to know what to do. Like, seriously, if you think that being a leader is about knowing everything and telling everybody else what to do, you're fucked. Right? It doesn't work that way, not least because of some of what some of the other speakers here have talked about how fast things are changing. So put down your sword. We're none of us Roman generals. And even the modern army doesn't try to command and control in quite the way that you see in tech companies these days. And so things change so fast that we can't possibly always have the right answer. And I acknowledge that's really scary. Because we, as professionals, start out not knowing stuff, and then we get good at some stuff, and then we know the answers to some stuff, and then people trust us. And so the thought that the more senior we get and the more people we lead, the less we're going to know, and the more we're going to have to admit that we have no fucking clue is really, really terrifying. But embrace the fear. And I think, therefore, our real job, and for those of you who are already in leadership positions or starting to move in that direction, is to create space in which people can be awesome. And space for everybody in the team to figure out what to do and how to do it and then to get it done, rather than to believe that we're some kind of all-seeing oracle because somebody gave us some stripes. So because I had this fuck that thing in particular reaction to the risk of becoming a pointy head boss, I went and read everything I could find. And I suppose that's my panic reaction. My panic reaction is to find books and read things and learn. And I found this book, which is from the late 90s, but don't write it off just yet. And it's based on actual research and science. So Gallup, who are a big organization, did this huge study across loads of different countries, loads of different industries, and went looking to understand why is like this restaurant so much better than the others in the chain? Why does this manufacturing plant outperform everybody else? Why is this division so much better, or whatever? So within a company, within an industry, why is this team high performing but the others aren't? And they came up with these 12 predictors of high performing teams. And I know that my reaction to trying to memorize 12 things is basically, great, now I'm drowning in data. So to make it a little easier to remember and to synthesize, Dan Pink's, who's read Drive? Has anybody read this book? Couple? Okay. There's a really good 12-minute long sketch note of a talk he gave, which saves you the time of reading the book. I'll send a link out afterwards. But he basically did a review of all the current science behind motivation. What makes people happy to go to work? And came up with these 3 key things that are needed: purpose, autonomy, and mastery. So do you believe in why you're doing what you're doing? Do you get some say in what to do and how to do it? And are you proud of the work that you do? Do you feel like you've got mastery in your particular specialism? And so if motivation is the combination of purpose, autonomy, and mastery, taking away any negative factors that detract, then that actually fits really well with these questions, right? They fit very well into those buckets, and it's a lot easier to remember 3 things than 12. But there's some things that aren't covered. And so one is, have I received recognition or praise for good work in the last 7 days? Another is, does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person? I think this very 80s belief people have that you can be a different person at work than you are in real life is bullshit. And do I have a best friend at work? I love this last one because it's so American. And in the US, this apparently makes total sense as a question and doesn't offend anybody. You ask people in the UK if they have a best friend at work, and their reaction is fuck you, you don't get to choose who my best friend is. I have one, that's it, forever, and I probably met them when I was 3. So think of that more as do you have someone who you would happily spend time with outside of work that you work with? Do you have any kind of sense of community or inclusion in the people that you work with? And I think that comes down to that feeling of being respected and rewarded, but also whether you feel like you can be yourself and be successful somewhere. And so space to be awesome is all 4 of those things together. Do I believe in why? Does the purpose make sense to me? And what I found really interesting in my kind of decade of managing people and leading people is, for some people, purpose is saving the whales. It's genuinely, there's a whole bunch of people who have this moment in their career where they go, I'm not an astronaut, what the hell? Or I'm not saving lives or making the world a better place. I've got to get out of here and go do that. But for most people, it's just, how does what I do make sense? How does it fit in with what everybody else is doing? How do I make sense of what I'm doing day to day? Autonomy, getting a say in what. Mastery, being proud of how. And then inclusion, do I feel like I can belong here? And I think that last one's also really important as we look at the problem we have as an industry about inclusion and diversity, of trying to make it more true that more people feel like they can be themselves and belong where we are. And so if our mission is to create space for people to be the best they can be, and I have a personal belief here as well that nobody comes to work. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, today I'm going to aim for just south of mediocre. And if I can fuck up everybody else in this team at the same time, then that'll make my day. I'm sure sociopaths exist, but I don't think that on average people are getting up in the morning and wanting to be shit at their job. There's a few people really murmuring in the audience. You need to find new jobs. If you work with people like that, get the hell out of Dodge. And so ask yourself these questions. Do my people know why we're doing this? Do they get a say in what? Are we doing the right thing? And are we doing the thing right? Are we proud of how we're doing it? And do we make all of our different people feel included and like they belong here? And so, if anybody wants to take a picture, that's the really useful slide in this whole deck. The rest of it's all just swearing and cat gifs. But these 4 things are what make a really engaged team and a really high-performing team and workplace. But what do we actually do with that? What do we do day to day? The first thing is to be a translator, help make stuff make sense for people. And this is how I spot the devs who are going to turn out to be CTOs one day, and the designers who are going to end up being like the chief design officer or whatever the latest term is for that. Is they're the ones who are helping, even when they're really junior, they're helping their team understand how stuff makes sense and how stuff fits together. They make that purpose and the strategy and direction make sense, and they connect what people are doing to that overall purpose. So when somebody's sat there going like, really, more automation tests? They're like, yeah, but it's going to mean that we can release more often and get stuff to our customers faster, and that's going to be awesome, right? Rather than, yeah, you're the intern, do the fucking automation tests, which is some people's reaction. Enable autonomy and mastery. So you can pay a huge amount of money to go on a course called Situational Leadership, which basically teaches you this quadrant, which is the clue skills matrix, which is people need different things from you depending on whether they understand what to do and how to do it. So if people are in that top, that does not work there. That's amazing. I've never seen a screen that like rejects the laser dot before. That's cool. So if people know like what to do and they're equipped to do it, your job as a leader is to be a bulldozer and a cheerleader. You get shit out of their way and you tell them they're awesome. If they've got the skills, but they don't know what to do, they don't know what direction to take this next piece of work in or how to get the team to go there with them, then they need some coaching. They need you to sit and talk through with them what the options are and for them to figure out what to do next. If they know what to do but they lack the skills, they need some training. And it's only really the people who have no idea what is going on, so they don't have the skills or the direction, that need to be taught or need to be told what to do and how to do it. But something that I see a lot in really junior leaders and managers is that reaction that they have to tell everybody what to do and how to do it, and that's their default. It's literally like 10% of the time you should ever be telling somebody what to do and how to do it, and untraining yourself from that tendency is really helpful and really valuable. And so consider whether you need to be being a mentor, a coach, a teacher, or an enabler of skill development, depending on what situation people are in. I think the other thing that it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize was that I was usually not the right person for someone to learn from. They were much more likely to learn well from somebody who was a peer than they were from someone who they thought of as their boss or their lead or their manager. And so figure out how to buddy people up and help them learn from each other. And remember that we're good at what we practice, provided we can learn from it. I'm South African, so I played a huge amount of sport as a kid and loved it. We pretty much anything violent, including some kind of scoring system, we're all into that. And what was really a revelation for me when I read some of the books about deliberate practice and the 10,000-hour rule and similar, I know some of that's been debunked to some extent, but it's really interesting to think that when you play sport, there's a really clear line between practice and performance. You practice in the week, and on a Saturday morning you have hockey or water polo or rugby or whatever, and there's a big difference between the feeling of training and the feeling of competing. And we don't really ever have that in day-to-day work. We don't construct our work in a way that we're like, okay, now I'm learning stuff and developing skills and practicing, and now I'm performing. Kind of the only example I've ever seen of it is like people going on a training course, but they're not always great, and people practicing to give a big presentation. But we otherwise kind of ignore all of how that works when we're much younger. And so there's this definition of deliberate practice that you need to get the most out of an experience. You have to, care about doing it, exert effort to improve your performance. You take into account what you already know, so you try and build on what you've already done, receive immediate informative feedback, and repeatedly perform the same or similar tasks. Nobody can remember this. It's too wordy. So the best analogy I've seen is, think of it like a video game. The games you really enjoy are the ones that are challenging without being boring. And so it's repetitive, but only when you're building skills. And so it's challenging enough to be interesting, but not so challenging as to be frustrating, and not so repetitive as to be boring. And if you think about work the same way, when you feel like you're learning something, you'll happily do something 20 times over. If you're learning every step of the way, if you are doing something 20 times over that you could now do in your sleep, you're going to be pretty checked out and wishing that you weren't there. And so think about how we can design our work in a way that makes it more effective, deliberate practice. How do you help yourself and your teammates and people around you to both practice and learn from what they're doing, get that immediate feedback, and feel like they're developing? And keep developing your own mastery. So I think I joked at the beginning that I'm not useful anymore because I'm now mostly a leader of organizations. I think as professionals in tech, because things change so much, we have to stay at least somewhat current. And so I will not claim that I know all of this week's latest JavaScript frameworks, but I do care and I do pay enough attention and still code enough to be useful and to be able to have useful conversations. And I think what changes as you become more of a leader is, and I've said tech, team, and tools there, but I think it's your specialist skills for whatever your specialism is. So it's being good at what you are, and then also caring about the people stuff and the process and tool stuff. The key thing to do is balance. It can be really, really scary the first time that you step up into that leadership role, because you suddenly have all this new stuff that you got to figure out, and you're very aware of how much it takes to stay current in the technology or your specialism and to stay current in the industry. And so remember that as humans, we all develop skills the same way. We start off unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what to do, and you have no idea at all. And if you think about when you're learning to drive a car, first of all, what's the gear stick even for? You start out completely useless. You then get consciously incompetent. You're doing it wrong, but at least now you know you're doing it wrong. And then over time, you can get to be consciously competent. So there's nobody more intent and who uses more energy driving than someone who's just passed their driving test. Like every part of them is completely about just keeping control of the car. And then you get to the point where you don't even remember the commute anymore because you don't remember what driving is like. It takes almost none of your energy because you're unconsciously competent at it. This is also why sometimes the most expert people are the worst at teaching. Because if you are unconsciously competent at something, you can't always explain why you did what you just did. And it's why if you take your most senior dev or your most amazing designer and pair them up with the summer intern or the junior who's just joined, they often don't get a lot out of it because that person's not great at explaining what it felt like or how they were making decisions when they were at some point along that journey rather than at the end. And so give yourself a break as you start to learn those new skills and figure out those new things, that you're not going to go from don't know how to do it to brilliant at it overnight. You need to go through these stages same as everybody else. And getting focused and making sure that you get that feedback loop and that you reflect on what you're learning is really the key thing that you need to do. And not trying to do it all at the same time matters. And then finally, cultivate inclusion. Help people to succeed as themselves. The best predictor of whether you can attract, recruit, and retain a diverse set of people into a team or an organization is whether they feel like they can agree with this statement, someone like me can be successful here. And the wording of that's really interesting. It's not, you can be successful here. It's not asking someone, are you going to be able to succeed here? Because people's reactions to that are basically one of either, run away, like, don't ask me that, or, this is my favorite, come at me, bro. But people react either they get fight or flight in response to a question, which is, can you succeed here? It's the wrong question. The right question is, can someone like them succeed here? And that inclusive environment and being able to say yes to that question is about more than just that individual person's confidence. It's also about the situation that they're in. And so when you are entering an organization as somebody who maybe doesn't look or isn't exactly the same as everybody else already there, if it's homogenous, you're asking yourself 3 questions, whether you know it or not. You're asking whether you're expected there. And this is, we talk about microaggressions, the small things that tell you you're not welcome. There are also micro messages, the small things that tell you that you are. One of the interesting questions when you're trying to figure out whether you're expected is, simple things like, is there anybody who looks like you on the website? Are there any other employees who are like you? Are any of the policies there for you, right? My wife's an architect, she builds hospitals, and the company she works for doesn't even have a maternity leave policy because they don't expect any women to be working there, or if there are, they certainly don't expect them to have any children. And that sends a message and has been a problem for them because it's a small message that tells people that they're not expected and they're not welcome. The second is, am I respected here? Am I getting any indication that I'm going to take a lot of crap for being different? And that's more about interpersonal team communication, how people are interacting with each other. And then that last one of, can I be myself and be successful here? I think we have to throw away that 80s notion that you can come to work, and I've just realized that like most of you probably weren't even fucking born in the 80s, and now I feel really old, sorry. But we need to throw away this notion that you can be somebody different at work than you are in real life. You have to be who you are, because any energy you spend on pretending to be something else, you could be spending being great at your job. And so people need to be able to see that they can be themselves, they don't have to pretend to be something else, and that it's possible to be successful as a result. And so space to be awesome is these 4 things. It's purpose, do I believe in why? Autonomy, do I get a say in what? Mastery, am I proud of how? And inclusion, do I belong here? Do I feel like I've got any sense of community? And then don't fuck it up by making everybody sit like 7 people to a desk, because that kind of shit nobody will put up with. Everybody wants to be awesome, and every role is capable of virtuosity. Anybody can be brilliant at what they do, and if we view our challenge as more, how do we make it possible for that to happen? That's actually something that everybody gets involved with. That's not just for the CEO of the company or the head of design or the head of engineering to figure out. It's for everybody to figure out. But if we make it possible for everyone to be brilliant, then everybody benefits. So shape and make space, be awesome, be inclusive. Thank you very much. Q&A?